The Philadelphia Eagles have flocked into their nest. The OTAs have started. Fletcher Cox is back too. Still nobody has been able to locate Marcus Smith. But some baby birds, some early birds that are looking to get that worm and win a starting job this summer. That's what we're here to talk about today. Brennan Albert is here. I'm Adrian Fedke. We just did a show on the entire landscape of the NFL and some rookie battles to look out for. But now we're focusing in primarily on this team here in Philly. How's it going, Brendan?
Hey, friends. How we doing today?
Hey. How about that last show? That was killer.
It was a good one, man. That was a full NFL recap of rookies. Kind of we're talking today is more just Eagles specific, but we did 31 teams in under an hour. It was pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me.
Yeah, and we could have went for another hour if we really wanted to. The first thing I want to get into in this show right now, because you're a defensive backs coach, you have a huge history on secondary play, cornerback play, and one of the main battles we're looking at here, we want to see Rasul Douglas win the starting cornerback job here in Philly. And I wanted you to talk about how difficult of a transition it is from college to the pros, playing cornerback. They say it's the second toughest transition of any position out there besides quarterback. Do you agree with that? Talk about all that.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. It's the second hardest. I mean, when in my line of work, guys, when I'm talking with student athletes or, parents of student athletes and their youth kids, and they're asking me, what position should my son play? I always say, hey, for basketball, learn how to dribble the ball and play point guard. Because it doesn't matter if you're 6'10" or 5'10". If you can handle the ball and you can play point, you're going to get on a team. In football, I always say learn how to backpedal, because whether you're 6'3" or 5'8", if you can backpedal, I can put you at corner or safety. I don't see many 5'8" inside linebackers, but I can show you 5'8" corners. So corner is the hardest position in the NFL, in my personal opinion, because the hardest thing in football to do is play man coverage, is to follow someone around when he knows where he's going and you have no clue. Oh, and the first 4, maybe 3 seconds, you're moving backwards while looking at him, feeling him, also looking at the other number 2 receiver, get an idea what the combo route is, knowing the route tree. It's extremely, extremely difficult. Oh, yeah, and then when the ball's in the air, then everyone's looking at you to make the play. And when you don't make the play, everyone boos you. And I always think about this. We always hear about how these receivers are big talkers and corners are now big talkers. Corners are big talkers because the majority of the time, think about it, defensive teams, they don't huddle. They just stand where their unit is, they look to the sidelines, they get the play call, and they go do their thing. Corners are always by themselves. So when they're talking junk, they're not talking junk to put you down. They're talking junk to mentally prepare themselves for the next play, to think, yeah, I am that good. Yeah, I am going to do this. And that way, when the ball's in the air, their thought is all of confidence and not of, oh, shit, I better not blow this or this is a touchdown for 60. So when it comes to corners, I broke this up into 4 different categories as far as why I think it's so incredibly difficult for corners to translate from college into the NFL. And I think all fans need to be aware of this. So the first one I have is trusting your timing, okay? When we watch a corner, he's going to start off in a back pedal, and then usually once that receiver gets 8 to 12 yards, he's going vertical, that's when it's time for the corner to open up his hips and run. And I call that trusting your timing. Rasul Douglas or Sidney Jones or whoever the corner is coming out, he's used to his speed and against receivers in college. Now you're going against the NFL where everyone can fly. So you're trusting your timing. The last 4 years was on a completely different rubric, a completely different rating scale. Now you're going against the NFL. So that's the first one that is a big adjustment. The second one I have is quarterback vision. If you're someone who's going to play a lot of zone coverage, a lot of times you're dropping into your zone flat, trying to feel the receiver's route either with your hands or by stemming your body to keep in front of him while still keeping your vision on the quarterback. Not a lot of college quarterbacks can make the no-look throw or can quickly come off one read and know this guy's going to be open backside without me looking because I know the coverage. Not a lot of college quarterbacks can do that. In the NFL, almost all of them can do that really, really good. So that's a big thing and a big adjustment is getting used to quarterback vision and not keeping your eyes on him the entire time. Still having an idea of what he's feeling and always being aware of what is your weakness in your coverage, because if that quarterback knows your weakness, the ball's going to come out. And if you as a defensive back know the weakness, now you're able to be a little more aggressive towards that. The third thing I put here, and this is one that I think is really, really unique, Rasul Douglas is a perfect example of this. Rasul Douglas is coming from the Big 12. Most of the Big 12 runs a spread offense, meaning 4, 5 receivers out in formation. West Virginia is a great example of that. Texas Tech, great example of that. A&M, great example of that. And I know A&M's an SEC school, but my point stands about spread teams. The problem is when you play these spread teams, if I'm an X receiver and I'm lined out wide, maybe on the bottom of the numbers, I probably only have one of 5, 6 routes. If I'm a slot receiver, I have one of 5 routes. If I'm an inside receiver, maybe I have one of 4 routes. So if I'm the corner, I know this receiver is running one of 4 routes. I can memorize those 4 routes. That's easy for me to do. When I get to the NFL, Odell Beckham, he can run every single route. He can run 20 different routes, no problem, almost no matter where he's lined up on the field. So as a corner, I'm not as intelligent because I'm not as prepared for seeing those type of routes. So when you get corners from those spread-heavy leagues, the Big 12 is really the biggest one, they haven't seen as much pro routes. So that is a big, big disadvantage. And then the final thing I kind of have here is my fourth thing, is combo routes. Combo routes, meaning there's twin receivers, trips receivers. Hey, if number 1 runs in, what's most likely for number 2 and number 3? A lot of times in college, it's post wheel, it's smash, it's very simple concepts. When you get into the L, it might be a smash corner, or it might be a post wheel comeback. It's going to add one more dimension to it. So these NFL corners aren't necessarily fully ready for all of the route trees that a NFL receiver is going to have. So it is extremely difficult for a corner to make that adjustment.
Boom. Boom. This is why I had you do your thing, because I knew you were going to be money with it. I mean, that was outstanding. Broke it down perfectly. Now, I wanted to get to Rasul Douglas, and you talk about the spread of offenses and all that. He played in a 3-3-5 at West Virginia. So it was a little bit different, a lot of zone heavy. He only was in press like 15% of the time. The average is like 20%. So I feel like he actually might have a little bit more of a learning curve than some other rookies entering the NFL. What do you think about that?
Big time, because here's the thing, in a spread heavy, so let's say, for example, I get an offensive set. So if you guys close your eyes and imagine we have 2 receivers on our left, 3 receivers on our right. We would call this empty right, meaning trips the heavy side is to the right. Let's say Rasul Douglas is towards that side, guarding the number 1 receiver, meaning the receiver furthest out. He can't press, because if he were to press, an offensive coordinator who's half a brain, he's going to check and say, hey, we're running a bubble screen. We're going to run a bubble to number 3, because if Rasul Douglas wants to press my number 1 receiver, fine. I'm going to let my number receiver block him right away. You've did my job for me. All you've done as a corner is line up in front of me. So now my receiver thinking, great, I don't have to chase you and then block you. I can put my hands out and block you. So that is a big reason why we don't see Big 12 receivers press maybe as common as SEC receivers who are more used to a little more pro-style offense like Bama runs, Florida runs, etc. So Rasul Douglas does have a big learning curve around him. Personally, I don't think he's going to win a starting job until at least week 7 or week 8. I think he's got a big learning curve around him. Yes, he led the league in most 8 interceptions. Yes, he doesn't exactly have a ton of depth in front of him. But I actually like Patrick Robinson a lot. I think that's a really good battle to kind of look at. I mean, if you're a pro football focus guy like I am, not last year, but the 2 seasons prior to that, Patrick Robinson was a 70 to 80% pro football focus rated corner, which is a solid starting corner number. This past year, he only played in 7 games due to some concussion and hip injuries. So if he's healthy, I think he's a starting corner with Jalen Mills. Now, if he's not healthy, well, then all bets are off, of course, and then Rasul Douglas can go ahead and get an earlier starting opportunity for him.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on Patrick Robinson. Actually, that's a point that I've made 2 years ago in San Diego. He had a really, really good year last year. Struggled with some injuries in Indianapolis. Always stunk in New Orleans, but figured it out that 1 year in San Diego. And that's the hope here in Philly, is that he can do what he did in San Diego, bring it here to Philly. Jalen Mills is probably going to be the starter on the outside. I think, they're saying that Rasul Douglas looks really, really good in OTA so far. Stuff like that. While that's encouraging, all right, this is where I'll ask your thoughts. OTAs, how big of a deal are they?
They're a big deal to players and coaches. They are not a big deal at all to the media, because I'm still waiting for a GM to come out and say, boy, that player sucks. We really shouldn't have picked him. It never happens. Every coach and every GM is always going to say, oh, yeah, this guy's really coming along. Boy, he's so much. I mean, look, all they're doing is they're selling us to buy more season tickets and buy more gear. It's a business at the end of the day, folks. So, is it a big deal? It's a big deal for development and for the coaching. But honestly, unless you're a guy who has access to go to OTAs and really knows what to look for, the media is always going to get told the same great things about players 99.9% of the time.
That's a great point to bring up, because it is media driven. And when you have a coach like Doug Peterson, saying encouraging things about Nelson Aguilar, and you have beat reporters saying that Nelson Aguilar is catching everything in sight, all of a sudden those people in Philadelphia, they start chugging not iced tea, but it's Hawaiian punch. They're drinking that Kool-Aid, and they're chugging that shit, and it's because of the media and what the coaches say, and they're feeding you bullshit, and you buy into it all the freaking time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and that's kind of the thing about, the OTAs. So I always say when we hear all this stuff, take it all with a grain of salt, because look, in the end of the day, Nelson Aguilar can catch every single ball now. I mean, look, I don't care if he doesn't drop a single ball between now and August. I really don't care. I just want to know how many balls does he drop when we put helmets on. People are actually trying to hit him for real and not tag him off at the hip.
Yep, and I've been saying that for the last week. So, all right, no point in getting into that any further. Back to Rasul Douglas. So you're thinking week 7, week 8. I think that's fair. I want to see him win the starting job. I just don't see it happening because of the learning curve. And he was the 17th cornerback taken for a reason. Mm-hmm. So while he might look good right now and it's encouraging and all that and what the beat reporters are saying, there is a steep learning curve. Now, Jim Schwartz does have a propensity of starting rookies. This is something I've looked into and something I've researched. So if there's a guy that starts a rookie, it is Jim Schwartz. So if Rasul Douglas does look good, they will start him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, look, Rasul Douglas is going to get every opportunity to play. He really is. Now, the kind of issue for him is he's a bigger, lankier corner, which is good, but traditionally bigger, lankier corners usually struggle a little more with foot fire and quick receivers when they line up in the slot. So, usually you think about, we'll bring the rookie in, we'll have him play a little nickel, so he doesn't necessarily expose us all the time, but gets his feet wet. He's not really going to be a physical fit there traditionally.
Yeah, he's not playing a lot.
Yeah, so then it becomes, okay, well, if that's the situation, do we slide Jalen Mills into the slot, and then we have him go out to the opposite side receiver, which in many situations you could say, yeah, that makes sense. But in your division, that opposite single side receivers is guys named Des Bryant, Odell Beckham, and whatever you want to say about him, Terrell Pryor. So, I mean, 6 games right there. I don't know if I love that. But, for him, like I said, I don't think he's going to start right away. I think he's going to probably be a midseason guy who's going to slowly start to turn it around.
Yeah, I see that. It can be almost like an Eric Rowe situation where Eric Rowe really, really struggled in the beginning and just picked it up as the season went along, looked better and better. Even though Rasul looks good right now, I'm still not 100% convinced he's going to keep looking like this throughout the whole year or whatever the hell he's looking at in OTAs right now. I don't know. I don't care until I see it in front of my face.
100%. Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah. All right, Sidney Jones, I wanted to talk about him really, really quick. When would you kind of bring him back? They're saying September, October. Do you play him this year? Like, how would you approach that?
If I can medically redshirt him, I am.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'm same.
That Achilles is the real deal as far as an injury, because you think about it, that's the first muscle that's going to fire for a corner when he's in his back pedal, where he's going to pivot, where he's going to open. your spring really as a corner is in that Achilles in the ankle area. So that's a big one for you to kind of get out and explode. So yeah, it's a big deal for me. So if I can redshirt him for a year and I can have him sit a year, I'm okay with that. I mean, look, you're not winning the Super Bowl this year, Philadelphia. Okay, let's just call a spade a spade. It's not going to happen. That said, let's let him grow incrementally. Let's let him grow intellectually in the season. Let's let him learn more. Let's let him watch film. Let's let him get in the film rooms, get in the team meeting rooms. And then if he has a great medical situation, he can come back week 13, 14, 12, whatever. Awesome. But there is no rush, zero rush in my mind. I don't care if Odell puts up 300 on him. I don't care. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, the only way I'm playing him is if the Eagles are in maybe playoff contention and the cornerback situation is such a shit show, maybe due to injuries or maybe due to inept play. Maybe you bring him back. But I'm more inclined to want to sit him. I am really scared because it is an Achilles injury. And Achilles injuries, they can say he's going to be ready in September. I call bullshit. I don't think he's going to be ready for the whole year, really. Like, at least 100%. Maybe he gets to 90%. I don't think he's going to be 100%.
I mean, we just got to always remember, too, like these guys, they're the greatest athletes in the world. When you play in the NFL, you're not a real human. So, an Achilles for you and me, Adrian, would probably take us 18 months.
Maybe like 24.
Yeah, now that said, I love it. It's probably the funniest thing. And, you always hear like, oh, it's a minor injury or it's a minor surgery. You know what's a minor surgery? When it doesn't happen to you. When a surgery happens to you, it's a big deal. But when, it's just a minor surgery because it happened to him. Same surgery happened to you. You'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm going in surgery today. It's pretty scary. It's a big difference, guys.
Next guy to talk about, Derek Barnett, another guy that the beat reporters are really salivating over, saying he looks great in OTAs. You look at the defensive line position here for the Birds. Brandon Graham is obviously going to be a starter. But Chris Long, Vinny Curry, Derek Barnett. Barnett is in a position where he can win a starting job, play that right defensive end spot alongside Vinny Curry on the other side, or Brandon Graham on the other side.
Yeah, he absolutely is. He's very much in that right defensive end mix. Now, I mean, you brought in Chris Long really just to kind of, be a 1-year guy to kind of, give you some production. I mean, that's really what he was in New England. He gave you some production, but that was it. I forget who it was, but like I was standing at the draft and, they say, Derek Barnett drafted the Philadelphia Eagles. And some Eagles fans like, we just signed Chris Long. Why would we sign Derek Barnett? I'm like, well, because Chris Long you signed him for a 1-year deal and he's over 30. So you're a boob. You're just a complete moron.
You're a boob.
Like I was looking around and I was like, really? I'm the smartest one here? This is a problem if you literally think that Chris Long is your solution. Now, that said, I talked about this in our earlier draft show. There's no such thing in the NFL. I think, honestly, it's one of the biggest farces of, this guy is a mentor. He's going to develop this guy to get him ready. No, Adrian, in your line of work and in my line of work, you know what I'm not doing? I'm not going to be like, I'm going to hire this guy and then I'm going to train him so he can take my job, so he can take food off of my family's plate. That's not happening. Like, I am not going to train someone to replace me. So why do we think it's going to happen in the NFL and the most competitive humans in the world? It doesn't happen like that. So this idea of, Chris Long or Vinny Curry, they're going to develop Derek Barnett so he can become the starter. That's not happening. Those guys are all out there competing their tails off to win that right defensive end spot. Barnett's going to end up winning it. Hopefully he wins it earlier in the year. But I tell you what, Vinny Curry better have a fire under his ass, because he got a big contract. It's not too late to get out from that for the Eagles to get rid of him.
Yeah, let me look at that. Let me look at over the cap. Let me look at that right now. How much is it to cut him? Because, man, it's not too much of a burden. I'm getting rid of him.
I mean, the problem with Vinny Curry is, he comes in, I think he's at 270, I saw at OTA, so he's probably still 20 pounds too light to kick inside and play D tackle. Maybe in a third down rush situation, you kick him inside. But, I mean, Timmy Jarnigan is really what you're looking for, and you brought him in. So, I mean, yeah, Timmy Jarnigan's on a 1-year deal, so maybe if you really want to keep Vinny Curry and you want to give him every opportunity, maybe you let him get some more reps at inside a D tackle, opposite of Fletcher. But I mean, you're already kind of screwed yourself financially.
Yeah, you can't cut Vinny Curry because you would have to pay $9 million to cut him. So he's here. He's staying.
Yeah, so at this rate, Vinny Curry is either going to be your starting DN, your backup DN, your backup D tackle, or he's going to go ahead and become the Eagles mascot and be the highest paid NFL mascot with $9 million. The Birds can't get rid of him, and honestly, it'd be very hard for them to trade him too.
No. Now, the Eagles are a team. They like to rotate the defensive end, so he will get snaps. They like to rotate immensely. I do think I'm with you. I think Barnett's going to win the job. I think he's going to start day one. Chris Long is not Chris Long anymore. Like it's as simple as that. He's going to help in run defense, I think, and Barnett, that's not where he's great at. So I do think Barnett will start, but it's almost like a co-starter kind of thing, because Chris Long, I think, will play more rundowns and Barnett play more of the passing downs, and Brandon Graham can do everything, so he'll play all three downs there on the other side. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Schwartz is one of those guys. He doesn't like the blitz. I mean, he likes to get pressure with 4, and he does that by keeping fresh bodies in the D line. So, you have a lot of guys who are scheme versatile. I wouldn't love Vinny Curry being my starting defensive tackle, but for a couple reps here and there, I probably could kick him in there. Probably could get away with Derek Barnett.
They have done that.
Get away with Derek Barnett playing a little D tackle, maybe on some third down pressure situations, but he's not going to do it a ton. Maybe twice a game max is kind of where I would see him. So, yeah, I mean, look, Vinny Curry is going to get his opportunities. All those D linemen are going to get opportunities in Jim Schwartz's system.
Yeah. All right, so we got the two main guys, Barnett and Douglas, in terms of camp battles. Other guys that could earn some snaps of rookie seasons. What do you think about the rookie wideouts, Mac Hollins and Shelton Gibson?
Yeah, so I'm not a big Gibson fan. I mean, I think he's just going to be a special teams guy, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, when you draft a guy usually after the 4th round, the big question in your draft room is, where does he fit on special teams? Is he a returner? Is he a gunner? Is he a front wall guy? Can he play special teams? So that's probably what he's going to be. Now, with the receivers, Matt Collins is kind of unique because I have Matt Collins camp battle with Dorial Green Beckham. Those are the guys I think are probably battling for that anywhere from the 3 to 5 spot as a receivers receiving core there for the Birds. That's kind of the one I'm kind of curious and circling to see, what are we going to do here between Dorial Green Beckham and Matt Collins? I think Matt Collins could beat him out and ultimately be the 4th receiver, but I wouldn't be surprised if it takes him a little bit too.
Yeah, I think DGB's gone. He's by. He's just fucked. I think he's done. Because you look at the six guys they'd keep. They got Jeffrey, Torrey Smith. I would think they keep both the rookies, Gibson and Holland.
Yep.
Maybe Gibson's a practice squad guy, but I would think if you put him on the practice squad, somebody else would pick him up. Mm-hmm. So you got those 4. Aguilar's too expensive to cut. So there's 5, and who am I missing? Who's the other one? And who did I miss?
Matthews.
I missed somebody, but there's another one. And DGB is not the 6th one.
Yeah, that's fair. Very, very fair. The other receiver kind of battle I have in here, it's not necessarily a rookie battle, but I do think there is a fair chance, and I'm just going to hold your opinion so I make this, that Nelson Aguilar can beat out Jordan Matthews. And here's the reason why. Matthews is in his final year.
I missed it. Yeah, you broke up there. I heard Jordan Matthews. That was it.
Okay. So I said I think there's a fair chance that Jordan Matthews is for a real fight with Nelson Aguilar for the 3 receiver spot. And here's why. Jordan Matthews is in his final year of his Eagles deal. Okay? So the Eagles essentially have 3 one-year players in receivers with their with Alshon, Torrey, and okay. So we realistically know, hey, Alshon's going to get the bulk of the work. Torrey's probably going to get a fair amount too. So then it becomes, would you rather potentially let Jordan Matthews play a little bit and then have to speculate and potentially overpay him to stay, or Would you rather invest playing time in Nelson Aguilar, give him a little more opportunity? He still has 3 years left on his deal. You can't cut him. It's going to be very hard to trade him. I personally think Nelson Aguilar is going to get more playing time, maybe more than he deserves, and understandably so. But the contract situation tells me Nelson Aguilar is in for a better situation for more playing time than Jordan Matthews. But that's just my personal opinion. And this is all well and good until we get there on the second Sunday and Jordan Matthews has 6 receptions and Nelson Aguilar has 6 drops, kind of thing.
Yeah, if Jordan Matthews is on the opening day roster, I think he's going to get a lot of playing time. He's going to be the guy. But I would not be surprised if he got traded this summer. Like, that's something I've said. I wouldn't hate it if they did it. I don't know how much they'd be able to get for him. I know somebody on my comment section said second-round pick. That's way too high.
No.
They're not going to get a second because he's in his last year. I said 4th or 5th, maybe. I don't even know if you can get a 5th. What do you think you can get for Jordan Matthews?
A 5th or a 6th. I mean, let me look something up here. Let me look up Jordan Matthews' stats, because he had a really good rookie year. I remember correctly.
He's never been over 1,000, and that was with Chip.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's not a lot of receivers in the NFL who hit the free agency market with 3 years of 60-plus receptions. I mean, he's got 3 years of 6+ receptions. So if I'm making a pitch for him, that's my pitch. It's going to be when he goes to free agency, he's open market, and it's usually pretty difficult to get a guy after his rookie contract who has 3 years of 60+ receptions, maybe 4 years of 60+ receptions. That's usually pretty rare to get. Trade-off is, I personally think Jordan Matthews is capped. I think his skill set is where it is. I don't think he's ever going to be any better than what we're seeing in him right now. So to me, I think a 5th rounder is fair. Honestly, he's one of those guys, just like kind of what the Ravens did with Timmy Jarnigan. You trade him right before the draft or during the draft so you can move up picks.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I kind of cut you off there, but basically, I think he's going to be on the roster. I don't think he's going to resign. Because the way I look at it is they invested a lot of money last year in guys that they re-signed, and I think at some point they're looking into the future and they're like, all right, who are we going to invest in? Who are we not going to invest in? Because eventually we got to give that extension to Carson Wentz and throw him a lot of money. And I think Jordan Matthews is a guy that I would pass on, kind of like this past offseason. They passed on signing Benny Logan to a big extension. So I'm looking at this the same way. I don't think Jordan Matthews makes enough of an impact. I think you can draft a wideout and get similar type of production in the early rounds. So Matthews, I've never been high on. He drops passes at the worst times. He has the numbers, and he put up good numbers with Chip, I guess. They look good, but I don't think he's as good as his production indicates.
I'd agree with that, Adrian. I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, that said, there's also a reason why you look how high Corey Davis went, how high Mike Williams went, how high John Ross went, because, I mean, free agency, you're not getting receivers who are sub 30 with 4 years of 60 receptions. I mean, that's what his agent is going to pitch teams, and that's why you see these NFL teams draft high for receivers typically, So with that said, I don't think it's a stretch either to see Matt Collins go from anywhere from a 5 all the way to the 3 receiver. I mean, he was the vertical threat for North Carolina. So is he going to beat Torrey Smith for the vertical route this year? Probably not. But I could see the Eagles saying, you know what, we're not going to sign Torrey Smith because we think Matt Collins can grow into that role and he's younger and we don't have to pay for Torrey Smith again.
Yeah. If there's a guy out of the wideouts that gets snaps, it is Matt Collins because of his ability to block and his ability on special teams. So he's going to earn snaps that way. Gibson is a one-trick pony. He goes deep, and that's it. And I don't know how much playing time he's really going to get his rookie season. We'll see. I mean, if the Eagles are struggling getting the ball down vertically, maybe they throw him in there for a couple snaps. But that's why they signed Torrey Smith. That's why they signed, drafted Matt Collins as well. So Hollins is going to get more snaps than Gibson. And another player to look out for that I want to get your thoughts on. I don't see Donnell Pumphrey playing a lot this year, but maybe he will more. What do you think? I think he's sitting on the bench and kind of getting his shot next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone says like, oh, he's gonna battle Darren Sproles for that role. Why? Because he's short. I mean, there's no rule on the roster. It's like, oh well, they're gonna battle for the short guy rule. No, I mean, look, what Sproles and Pumphrey both do is, yeah, they both can catch the ball out of the backfield, but here's the big difference. Pumphrey only has 5 career returns in college, and that's 4 kickoff returns and 1 punt return. So Pumphrey isn't necessarily going to be a return man that everyone thinks he was going to be. He doesn't have that track record. Now, it doesn't mean he can't do it. I understand that. But I am saying right now, I have nothing to make it sound like, oh, yeah, he's going to be our special teams return guy. I got nothing to base that off of. So I think for him, he's got to battle Smallwood to be that last active running back on the roster. I don't think he's battling Sproles at all. I'm with you, Adrian. I don't see a lot of playing time for him this year.
Yeah, I get the sense that the Eagles are going to keep 4 backs, so they will keep Pumphrey on the roster. I've heard reports that they've had Sproles and Pumphrey on the field at the same time, which kind of interests me a little bit. I wouldn't mind seeing that, like a snap or two, see if it works. That's something that Chip Kelly used to do with Deshaun Jackson and McCoy, where he would run them out in the flats on opposite sides, and maybe you can work something out with that. But Pumphrey, to me, when I watched this tape, I didn't see Darren Sproles. I didn't see the acceleration coming out of his breaks when he's running a route. What I saw was more of a light version of Warrick Dunn, because Donnell Pumphrey, he did run between the tackles at San Diego State. That's a power running offensive line.
Yep.
So Warrick Dunn in Tampa Bay, that was always something that Mike Allstott was that bruiser, but Warrick Dunn still ran between the tackles as well and was a threat out of the backfield. I don't think Donnell Pumphrey is going to be as big of a threat out of the backfield as maybe people think, but I do think he's a solid runner, and he will be able to catch some screens and get him out in space, and then that's the way they should use him.
Yeah, personally, I mean, I was very critical of this pick. I didn't love it, especially because the Eagles traded up to get him. And I like Marlon Mack a lot more than I like Pumphrey as far as an NFL prospect, and the Eagles passed over Mack to get Pumphrey. I really didn't like this pick because, honestly, I don't think he brings you anything that Sproles and Smallwood don't already have on your roster. I'm not a fan of it. I think he's maybe not even going to get on the roster. I could see him being a practice squad guy.
Yeah. Nathan Jerry and Elijah Qualls, just 2 last guys. You see them getting any snaps this year?
Special teams.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what we're looking at here now. We start to get those special teams battles kind of thing. That's really what we're talking about.
Qualls is in a tough spot with all the depth at D tackle. Cox, Jernigan, Bo Allen. It's going to be tough for him to get a lot of snaps. We got Destiny Vial, who made an impression last year as well. So I don't see that. I am a little bit, just a little tad curious about Jerry and how they kind of implement him, because they played safety in college, but he's listed as a linebacker. So, and interesting tidbit, I know you like Pro Football Focus. Pro Football Focus listed him as their 2nd-ranked safety in college last year. How about that?
A good tidbit.
So, yeah, that's interesting. He may get some snaps. I don't know how many he'll get, but he's a guy to watch out for, I think, a little bit. He's sneaky, kind of under the radar, might get some snaps this year.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. All right, anything else you want to add before we get out?
The only other thing I would say, guys, is, typically when we look at draft picks and we look at when players are drafted, traditionally speaking, this year wasn't a great example of it because there wasn't a very deep offensive line. Pretty good defensive line, but not a deep offensive line. Traditionally speaking, what we see offensive linemen and defensive linemen usually drafted earlier, and then skill players get drafted heavier towards the end. The reasoning for that is because traditionally those guys towards the end, they're all special teams guy. I'm still waiting for a 330-pounder to run down there and cover a kickoff in the NFL. Haven't seen it yet. So, that's typically why we talk so heavily about these guys towards the end. Can they play special teams? It's really the big question for them. The only other question I just have for the Eagles is what is going to happen with Ryan Matthews and LeGarrette Blount? Because, LeGarrette Blount obviously brings a whole new level of physicality to the Eagles' backfield that they don't have. But the trade-off is schematically, he's always been a dot back. He's always been an eye back. He's never been a guy sidecar in the shotgun. That's why the Patriots use Dion Lewis so heavily and other like White back there as their slot backs. Ryan Matthews, I mean, yeah, he's up. He could be the guy out the door and being cut, but I mean, for what? I mean, I don't think like, oh, we cut him because we want to get Smallwood one more time. I don't know. I mean, I don't see it personally. I mean, realistically, if you cut Ryan Matthews this year, it's not like, oh, we get to cut him and now we're going to use that cap money on someone else. There's not many players out. So I think he stays, but if he gets cut, I get it too. I just have a lot of question marks of what's going on in the Eagles' backfield.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think last year, we'll see how the scheme kind of develops and what happens with Doug Peterson. Because I know he didn't play as much under center last year as he wanted to. They did play a lot of shotgun. Ultimately, he does want to play more power ball, but he kind of catered the offense around, Jason Kelce's strengths in terms of the running game, in terms of using the wide stuff along the boundaries, stuff like that. So this year, because you have LeGarrette Blount, I would think they'd take more snaps under center. But where I'm going to be intrigued to see is what do they do with Kelce at center? Because if you're going to have Blount in there, he's not pushing people back. So, we'll see. I mean, Ryan Matthews, the argument why maybe you can cut him because, I mean, other guys are going to be available through free agency maybe because other guys are going to get cut. And right now, according to Over the Cap, the Eagles have the least amount of cap space out of anybody. So if say, you wanted Jeremy Maclin, you free up some room by, cutting Ryan Matthews, something like that. I guess, all right, quick thoughts before we head out. Thoughts on Jeremy Maclin? You see that happening in Philly?
No.
Yeah, me neither. I want it to happen. I don't see it.
No. I mean, it would just be completely spiting what your plan of attack was of giving two big-name receivers show-me deals and then bringing in another receiver. Then you have Matt Collins. Then you have a first-round draft pick who you're still trying to develop in Nelson Aguilar. Then you have, Jordan Matthews. There'd just be too much. It's not happening in Philly. He's going to get overpaid somewhere, like Buffalo, like Baltimore. He'll get overpaid somewhere else, and that'll be fine.
Overpaid, because I thought maybe he wouldn't get as much money because it's so late in the proceedings and teams like rosters already set basically. So I thought,
well, and that's fair, Adrian. But here's my rebuttal. Let's use a team like the Ravens is really a great example. Yeah. Baltimore didn't sign a single receiver. Their best receiver retired, and they didn't draft the receiver. So Baltimore is pretty much shit out of luck. I mean, they're looking at guys like Anquan Bolden, and then all of a sudden Jeremy Maclin came loose. I mean, so for them, they're at that point where, shit, we just got to pay him. We got to bring him in because there are other teams who have a lot of uncertainty in their receiving core. Buffalo is one we talked about in the last show. Sam Watkins' option wasn't paid up. No one thinks Zay Jones is going to be a number one receiver or even a number two receiver definitively in the NFL. So there's a lot of teams who still need help out there at wideout. So with him coming out late, it'd be interesting to see where he signs. But no, it won't be Philly. I heard a rumor it might be Dallas, but I wouldn't see how that would make sense either.
Buffalo makes a whole ton of sense. And LaShawn McCoy, I think, actually said something today. I'm gonna write something for Philly Influencer tomorrow. I haven't seen what he said, but I got a text from Nick Pacone, and I haven't looked at it yet. But I just saw something about LaShawn McCoy in Buffalo, and then we did the show. So I saw that. The reason why I don't think it's going to happen, I mean, I did 2 videos on it, and it's fun to speculate on, but it is a dick move if you cut Torrey Smith right now. Like, it's just a dick move to sign Jeremy Maclin and just get rid of somebody. Now, I get this is a business, and it's a bigger of a dick move for Andy Reid to get rid of Maclin 2 weeks after going to his wedding. Andy's got no chill.
Yeah, I'm with you. That was a pretty cutthroat move when I saw that too. And I mean, Kansas City, dude. Like, what do you have? Like, why do you cut him? What do you have? You're like, oh, well, he's really preventing who from developing at receiver?
Who?
I mean, like, we had Tyreek. Tyreek Hill. He had a great rookie year, but Are any of us ready?
That's their.
I mean, come on, we're not ready to count him as an ex-starting receiver. Let's be realistic here.
Their guys are him, Albert Wilson, Chris Conley, and Demarcus Robinson. Those are their top 4 guys at wideout. I don't know what Andy's doing.
Yeah, that one was a head scratcher to me.
And he's only 29 still. It's not like a guy that you had underperforming in his 30s. Like, he's 29, and this seems like an outlier for Maclin because he's never done anything like this in his career.
The only thing I can possibly think of is because maybe he gets some large signing bonus if he starts the OTAs or starts the season in him. So maybe the Chiefs were trying to trade him, and that's why they held him for so long. And then when they realized, hey, no one's biting for him, and if he's on the roster for another week, we have to let him go. That's my speculation, but I'm making that off of no knowledge at all.
They saved more money by cutting him after June 1st. So they saved $10 million instead of like 4.5. I don't know the exact number, but that's why. That's the basis of why they cut him.
I got you. I mean,
yeah.
There's a lot of teams that will sign him. I mean, St. Louis, Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore, all those teams, or Los Angeles. I mean, the Rams. I mean, there's a lot of teams who will be able to sign him because they need receiving help.
Yeah. Here we go. Adam Schefter just tweeted. He retweeted. LaShawn McCoy recruiting Jeremy Maclin to join Bills. Don't be surprised if it happens. So there you go.
Yep. I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, it makes sense. There you go. All right. Any other final thoughts? This show went a lot longer than I thought it would.
No final thoughts. I mean, I think the Birds did a really good job with the draft, considering free agency was not something they had a ton of money to blow. They were very selective in how they used it. Getting the receiver help was a smart move because they knew, hey, we're not going to get Mike Williams. We're not going to get John Ross in the first round. So let's invest our free agency money there. And then we can go out and bring in defensive line. We can bring in some corner help. I think the Eagles did a very good job in the offseason.
Yeah. As for me, for a final thought, I can't wait to get to the NFL previews because Brennan and I are going to be previewing all 32 teams. And that's going to start end of June-ish, maybe start of July. And the reason for that is not only because there's going to get more viewers for that, but I need to finish my rankings. And I do a formula. I don't know if you're familiar with it. I don't think I've ever showed you. But I don't know if my viewers know what I'm talking about. But I got something special. This is something I've done before in the past, but the Bitter Birds have gotten popular over the last year, so maybe my viewers don't know what I'm talking about. But I do these rankings every year, and I put numbers next to players, and I look at depth charts, and it'll be something you'll just have to see when it comes out. And it's something I got a lot of respect for last year at Philly Influencer. I got a lot of praise for it. So I'm going to bring it to the Bitter Birds this year.
Love it. I'm real excited about that stuff, Adrian.
Yeah, you'll just have to see what I'm talking about. I can't explain it because I don't know how to explain it, but it's all in my head. It's all the shit. So there you go. All right, Brennan Albert, I'm Adrian Becky. We are out. Hopefully you guys loved all the content today. Peace. Later.
Later, guys.